Well, here we are, day 2 of the solo cruise heading towards Little Venice. We do still have about 5-6 hours to go. If yesterday was anything to go by, but better get started. Looks like a nice day. Welcome back to part 2 of cruising into central London with the piano boat.
Masa had set off bright and early after yesterday's fiasco to make up any time that he had lost in having to stop cruising suddenly. It was a beautiful still morning, as you can see, and at this time there weren't many boats moving about.
I must say there was a hint of sadness in having to cruise alone, but the beautiful scenery certainly made up for any sense of loneliness. Here we come to the Slough Arm, a branch going off towards the west to Slough from the Grand Union Canal.
This was our first choice when we were looking at cruising plans. We were going to take guests up and down the Slough Arm, which is actually a really beautiful stretch of canal, despite what we had been told by some people. However, we weren't able to get a mooring nearby, so that plan didn't work.
It's actually quite hard to articulate just how incredible the scenery was, particularly at this time of the morning. However, you can also tell that it was a very long journey. Whilst the canal itself is quite wide, the junctions tend to have bridges where, as you might have noticed, narrows immensely every single time. And this 90 degrees left turn was quite scary to attempt at first go. You could also perhaps tell just how slowly I was going when the video isn't sped up at all. Now, coming up here after Alperton is one of the wonders that I found when I originally did the cruise with Alex and Jenny Nunes. Going over the North Circular, A406, lanes and lanes of car traffic with a body of water and a boat is just incredible to describe. Having taken lots of pictures, I set off again towards now fast approaching central London.
Going towards central London, there is an interesting mixture of built-up parts as well as stretches of beautiful greenery.
Another memory from Alex was going past the A40 flyover. It was an incredible sight to see first time, and it never tires. But one thing that did strike me when I met Alex to talk about the cruise plans was that he did say, "Oh, you won't be able to do any of the cruises we used to do because it's so congested." I looked up the old photo from that trip back then in 2011 to find that there were indeed no boats at all moored by the sides. Here you see a narrowboat just making it out before my approach. Notice how it quickly disappears into the horizon.
Although we try and be as considerate as possible, we know that nobody really wants to be stuck behind a Widebeam. They tend to be slow and difficult to pass, and on stretches like this where you have boats moored on both sides, it can be difficult to pull over. Here on the left we have Richard Branson's boat.
And that signals the approach towards Little Venice. I finally arrived.
This whole day was completed solo cruising by Masa. I wasn't able to join until the evening. Coming up to the familiar blue bridge, we have the CRT office on the right.
There were absolutely no locks to do at all. But this length of journey, for which I took no breaks, was quite taxing, and I can't describe the relief I felt when I finally cruised under the bridge and saw the Little Venice Basin.
This island in the middle is like a roundabout, so just as on the road, you have to pass in the same direction.
I'm not sure if it was entirely necessary, given that the mooring bay was just by the exit of the Blue Bridge. Nevertheless, I took advantage of the occasion and enjoyed going around diligently. There were hardly any boats from the St. Pancras Cruising Club yet. They would have approached from the other side, so I decided to take the furthermost mooring spot to stay out of anyone's way as they arrived.
Finally, safely installed, I later joined Masa for dinner on board. Good morning and welcome to the 200th anniversary celebrations of the Regent's Canal. All boats and boaters were standing by at 10 a.m. on the dot. We set off promptly according to the order list we had been given.
We didn't have any of this smart-looking bunting, but we did get up extra early to put up balloons which depicted 200.
We had been informed the night before that there was to be a competition for the best definition of 2 boat lengths.
To think at this point we were actually going for it.
Unfortunately, the gaps soon widened as we realised we had to take it more slowly than the boats in front of us.
And of course, past this lovely stretch of Maida Vale mooring, one of our biggest of concerns, the tunnels. The first of the 2 concerns ahead, the Maida Vale Tunnel. This one is only 249 metres, that's 272 yards, but the headroom remained a concern from day one of the build. What if the boat didn't fit through the tunnel?
Fortunately, this one posed no issues. What a relief.
The air tunnel of only 48 metres was to follow, and then we were met with an expanse of colourful boats moored in a small basin.
Cruising through Regent's Park, it was bitterly cold. I had come prepared with leg warmers and ear warmers, of which Masa was rather jealous. The London Zoo aviary on the left is being transformed into a new walk-through enclosure. We could see many holes in the netting. It's probably about time.
Again, I remember with Alex and Jenny's cruise going through this back stretch of London Zoo. We would have seen some hyenas on the right here.
Coming up in front is another 90-degree turn, but also this very interesting floating Chinese restaurant. We have been past it many times, but not been in it yet.
I have once taken helm of the Club Commodore's narrowboat from Little Venice to St Pancras. This was on the club's icicle cruise midwinter on New Year's Eve. It's tradition to have barbecue at Rembrandt Gardens mooring at Little Venice, come rain or snow. That certainly brought about its own pressures. Not least, he was the one that trained us for the RIA helmsman course. But of course, that wasn't my own vessel that I was at the tiller of. But here, with the extra width of the boat, and spectators including kayakers and gongoozlers to start with, all staring at our every move, the pressure here was equally immense. The boat is equipped with a powerful bow thruster, which I was reluctant to use at this stage, as it would probably have enough power to possibly knock over one of the kayaks. Instead, I took it as slowly as I felt necessary and completed a successful maneuver.
As we approach Camden, you can see plenty of houses that have their own moorings situated at the end of their gardens. This is just a dream, and many of them have lovely small boats.
It ended up quite the opposite, our vessel, Rachmaninoff. But I'm still a big fan of the traditional narrowboats. One day, we'll get a narrowboat and call it maybe Mozart.
We have now arrived at Camden Market. I got off here to grab us a burger, but then realised I couldn't get back on because there are fences surrounding the locks and you need a key to get in, which I didn't have with me. I had to then wait until Masa had come out the other side and unfortunately couldn't help with these locks. I did enjoy my burger though.
And my pint. Here, there are a series of locks, 3 locks in total, practically one after another.
The second of these had a particularly heavy gate, which I really struggled to close on my own. You get to a point where you're sort of hanging off the gate handle, trying to get it to move. There was quite a lot of boat traffic coming up and down the locks, but this does make for efficient use, as one boat goes down, another comes up.
After a relatively short cruise, we come to the home of St Pancras Cruising Club, just by St Pancras Station. And on the right of the basin by the railways, Helix, the narrowboat that Alex and Jenny ran their cruise services on, is moored.
On the left, there was a Canal and River Trust stand where they were showing people their work, and on the right, there is a new clubhouse being built for the St Pancras Cruising Club, and the garden is always kept immaculate by the Rear Commodore and members. This is a very trendy, newly developed part of London, with lots of restaurants, bars, and a lovely outdoor space.
Having enjoyed the fashionable canal side, fear. The daunting Islington Tunnel is upon us. Just look at the damage caused by boats at the mouth of the tunnel. Before setting off, I did put a strip of metal along the handrail at the top. You could just about see it on the bottom left of the picture, and on one occasion, it did actually scrape the side of the tunnel. The horror at the thought of the tunnel wall scraping straight along the side of the boat. At 878 meters, that's 960 yards, this was a very different experience to the Maida Vale Tunnel altogether.
The Islington Tunnel was opened in 1818 and is one of the majesties of the Regent's Canal. When entering, you can hardly even see daylight at the other end. By this point, we had already been overtaken by some of our flotilla members, probably fed up at being stuck behind us.
It seems a bizarre observation that ladies seem to do all the lock work and men are just standing at the tiller. Accordingly to tradition, we follow this format. Here you can see Rhianna doing all the lock work and having a quick scratch at her ear.
Excuse me. In this instance, I think I had preferred doing the locks rather than taking responsibility for the boat.
There were quite a few locks where we were held up as well, and it didn't feel to me that we were specifically holding anyone back. But with the tunnels and the stretches of canal in between locks where we were clearly going very slowly, it was clearly too slow a pace in comparison to that of narrowboats.
Now approaching East London, you can continue to see the combination of industrial built-up stretches combined with the beautiful greenery of Victoria Park.
As ever on lock duty, Rhianna seems to be getting a little bit tired.
As Masa said before, that is the thing about having locks spaced out. When you have a flight, at least you know what you're getting yourself into. But when they are spaced out like this, you just settle down and off you go again. Around this point, we received a telephone call. It was a concerned club member asking where we were. He then came to help and prepare the lock. This was a warning sign for us.
Has everyone already arrived?
Sorry?
Has everyone already arrived?
Well, half of them have. Yeah, no, the first lot have arrived.
Right.
They got there at 3:30.
Oh gosh. Are we holding everyone up?
They're close behind you, are they?
Yes, fairly close.
And they're all quite close together, these now, so... Is it just the two of you?
Yeah. Everything takes a bit longer.
At this point, it was about 5 o'clock.
Perhaps the excitement of cruising through central London on one's own vessel got the better of me, and the awareness of being part of a flotilla seemed to have dissipated somewhat. There are times when on hire boat holidays that you do need to get back to base in time, and whilst we do plan to allow plenty of time, I do remember a couple of occasions where I did have to aim for that maximum 4 miles per hour on open stretches. Here, it felt slightly the same. The casual sightseeing no more. It was a question of making sure that we don't create a wash, but go as fast as we can.
Never mind settling in. At this point, I had to walk however far it was to the next lock to get it ready so that we had minimal delays going forwards.
And here we are, the last lock before arriving into Limehouse Basin.
At long last. This brought an intense sense of relief for me too, as this was the final lock I would have to do that day.
Historically, railways were often built side by side to the canals, and I would enjoy trains going past as I cruise. Here, there would be no such relevance, but I didn't fail to stop and enjoy trains going overhead. We have done this route before on a hire boat recon 2 summers ago, but it was particularly moving to encounter this gate on our own vessel all the way from Harefield.
The sight that greeted us was quite spectacular, with cruisers, yachts, and even some commercial vessels, far surpassing anything seen on the canals. It had been a long haul, 7 hours on day 1 and 8 hours of cruising on day 2, but we had finally made it to Limehouse.
The Commodore greeted us to our mooring spot, and the journey finally came to a close. Well, at least the first half of it anyway.
Thank you very much.
Are you on there, Masa?
Yeah, standing by.
Okay, if you tie it on, then I'll take up the slack with this. Okay, here we go.
Thanks for your help.
Pleasure.
Well, that was the first half of our journey, but then of course we had to get back to Harefield again, which I think took another few days.
Yes, it was, as I'm sure you've heard many times already, it was a very long journey. Stood at the tiller throughout, and hours and hours and hours of footages that we went through. But I think we tried to pick the good bits, but obviously it was very compressed, and I'm sure we missed many interesting features and sites, but we would hope to do these routes again, so perhaps we'll focus on other elements. But it must come with an apology to members of the St Pancras Cruising Club for delaying the latter half of the flotilla. Really, it did.
Yeah, it
did
was.
Take time.
We knew we were going to be slow, but we were in the middle. But you know, we all did get there in the end and had a nice dinner at the Cruising Association.
It was very nice, very rewarding, and everyone looked very happy. So
I think it worked out all right. But
yes,
yes, apologies to those boaters who were stuck behind us. When we did finally make it to Limehouse, though, probably the highlight. Well, maybe not, but. We actually came across Sir Ian McKellen sitting on the back of an old narrowboat, and I thought, well, you know, why not take this opportunity? So I gave him a leaflet for the piano boat. He didn't seem very interested.
We'll see.
I think I probably just intruded on his nice peaceful evening, but that was...
No, I think there were people who seemed interested.
Yes.
Hence,
but
popping over.
But apparently he wanders around there quite a lot, so... Anyway.
Yes, but that was the following morning. Rhianna had to go back, possibly that evening, and then joined again the following, because it was a Sunday morning, the following morning, and she had to teach and then quickly got back to the basin before we departed. But in the meantime, we used to do back then weekly Facebook live broadcasts. And I remember I did a concert from Limehouse Basin, and I think you joined just in time for the start of that, and the boat got loose.
So came untied.
And I think I was already playing when you went outside.
Well, someone knocked on the window. I think someone was waving at us from the window, and Masa was halfway through playing, so I had to go out and rescue the boat from drifting off.
Yes, so that drama, these things are rather unusual. Normally, if I do a concert, the venue doesn't float away, but that was a rather unique experience altogether.
Yes, has to be said, we are currently dressed up with the piano open because Masa's just finished giving a virtual concert. So this is something that we've been doing about once a month since December now, kind of instead of doing the cruises that we had planned. More on that in a minute, but that's why we're looking kind of all dressed up to go out. We're not going anywhere, but...
And that's why I'm feeling extra exhausted and drained at the moment.
Yes, exactly. So this is not our normal attire, but yes, we have been just giving a concert. But we are really, really excited because this week we have finally managed to get some dates out for July for the cruises. So, oh my goodness, it's been such a long time coming, but we are really excited to finally be able to actually run cruises and do these musical afternoons that we've been waiting nearly a year to now. So that's been kind of this week's excitement. So yeah, watch this space.
Yes.
Thank you again for joining us. And
oh yes. Next time is going to be the walkthrough of the boat. Again, that goes back. It feels like time jumping back and forth. But the virtual crick show that happened, we virtually exhibited the boat for our builders, TriStar Boats, who have really been nothing short of excellence. And so we did take the opportunity to film a walkthrough as well. So that will be coming up next.
Yes, so that's our next video, and we know it's been requested by a few people. So if you are one of them, that is coming soon.
And yes, we are still working on microphones and various devices. So do bear with us as we try to improve the delivery altogether.
We will get there. And I realise we've sort of forgotten to say this in maybe the last video, but, you know, give us a thumbs up and subscribe, and we shall see you again next time. Thank you so much for watching if you've reached it this far, and see you soon.